try and use my electronic device. But if all else fails, I have my paper. So pray with me and pray for me. I am so thankful for you inviting me here, and I would just like to invite you to participate in today's service. I come from a tradition where amens and thank yous and head nods are appreciated. It affirms the preacher. So please be invited to do so. Today's scripture reading is coming from the book of Joshua, chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. And it reads, Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. Go look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, Look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab. Bring out the men who come to you and entered into your home, because they have come to spy out the whole land. But the woman had taken the 2 men, and she had hidden them. She said, Yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. Speak truth to power. It is a beautiful and yet a terrible thing, and it should therefore be treated with great caution. The truth is rarely pure, rarely never simple. A lie can travel halfway around the world, but the truth is still there putting on its shoes. Never tell the truth to people who are not worthy of it. Will you pray with me? Oh, gracious God, you are wonderful. We thank you for this day. We thank you that we are gathered here in community. Let us be reminded of the decisions that we face every day. Let us know the difference in our responses. Open up our hearts, open up our ears, open up our minds to be able to receive a new word in a new way, in a different light. Let us leave this place understanding that you are for us, and what we say and the decisions we make have consequences. Lord, we love you and we thank you. We pray that this is a mighty word this morning. And the people of God say together, Amen. Never tell the truth to people who are not worthy of it. That's the last part of the quote that I just gave you. And this quote is actually by Samuel L. Clemens. And for some of you guys, you know that better. This person is better known as Mark Twain, which is considered the father of American literature. Now, though Mark Twain is not a theologian, there is certainly some cause for us to look at this quote this morning as it relates to the concept of truth outside the realm of what we believe Scripture teaches us. God, our Father, says in Proverbs that the Lord hates a lying tongue. And as believers, or even just good people, we are guided by this principle, right? We are taught, just tell the truth, right? We specifically teach our children to tell the truth, don't lie. To speak the truth at all costs. Honesty is always the best policy. We even use the good old story of George Washington as a prime example of telling the truth when you're in the wrong. Remember young George Washington? Right? Remember when he confessed to chopping at his father's cherry tree? When his father asked him, George, what happened to my tree? And little young George responded with so much enthusiasm as we've been taught, I cannot tell a lie. I cannot tell a lie, Father, it was me. We teach this lesson that you should tell the truth at all times, regardless of the consequence. But let me remind you, that story that was teaching us about the truth was actually a lie. So, there you go. But what makes it so difficult for us to delineate between what is truth and what is a lie? What is this discernment process? What does it look like when we're faced with which way to go? And we know right now in society and what we're going through, truth and lies are finding themselves steeped together in the same pot of chaos. How do we know when telling the truth is killing us? but lying is saving us. What is the benefit of a saving lie? Is a saving lie the moral truth? Is it a moral obligation? But when we look today's text, we are reminded of what it looks like to discern between a killing truth and a saving lie. Our scripture reading is the beginning of the story of Rahab. And if you've been in church for any part of your life, you remember Rahab. As small children, we just learned about Rahab hiding spies and letting them climb down the side of the roof. But Rahab is really a prostitute in the city of Jericho. And Rahab's brothel was visited by two guys. And they just so happened to stop by her place when they arrived in Jericho to case the city out for a takeover. Now, it was no coincidence that they stopped by Rahab's place. I mean, the type of business Rahab operated, it was no secret. Everyone knew. So these gentlemen who were spies from the city of Shittim, they were sent here by Joshua to spy on this country of Jericho so Joshua could take it over. So now let's rewind a little bit. We remember Joshua. Joshua's taken over from Moses. He's taken over Moses' place to lead the Israelites. So these guys are coming in not for a small job. They haven't been sent by just anyone. They've been sent by Joshua, chosen by God. The king of Jericho, as we learned in our scripture this morning, goes and sends for Rahab and tells Rahab, I'm aware that these men of Shittim were at your house. They're here, and I want you to turn them over. Rahab has hidden them in. They're on her roof. So this is what she decides to tell the king. She says, oh, yeah, they did. They came to me, but I didn't know them from anybody. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know where they were from. But I can tell you this. When darkness fell, they fled to the city gates from what I know. And I don't know where they went. I don't know where they were going. But if I were you, I would have someone go look for them. You better go and find them. And while Rahab is sharing her knowledge of the men to the king, she knows full well where the men's location is. She knows their status. But she chooses to tell the king a saving lie. But why? What does Rahab have? I mean, why does she choose to not disclose the status of the men to the king? And so one thing that I'm always guided by when I look at scripture is that we learn a lot from the text, right? When we're reading, we learn a lot. We learn not only what's going on by what the text discloses to us, but we learn just as much by what it does not disclose to us. We learn a lot about the scripture by what it doesn't say. And what we don't see that Rahab had any knowledge about what the men's true intentions were. She has no knowledge of what exactly they were doing here in Jericho, other than stopping by and laying in her place. And I mention the word laying because in the Hebrew, the word laying carries a sexual connotation. So they could have been like any of the other men who came to her place, who found themselves there. There's no difference to her. But what we see Rahab finding herself in is a dilemma. Does she tell this killing truth or a saving lie? When you look down to verse 8, and it's not in today's text, but I'm going to read it to you because it's really important for us to understand the story why Rahab responds the way that she does. And I'm going to be reading this verse out of the Jewish Study Bible, and it says, she said to the men, I know that the Lord has given the country to you because of the dread that has fallen upon all of us. And all of the inhabitants of the land, they are quaking before you. So now Rahab is recognizing that these aren't your regular guys. These aren't your regular strangers coming into town. Something is different. They have the king fearful. He sends men to chase after them, after her recommendation. These actions don't sound like these are just regular guys. And so Rahab has to stop and come back and has to discern and use caution. She finds herself now in the middle of this pot of chaos that she didn't even insert herself in. These dudes came to her place doing her regular business that she does, and now she's finding herself before the king lying. How did that happen? Have you been like Rahab? Have you found yourself in a situation that you didn't even put yourself in, but yet you're there? You're there in the midst of this dilemma, of this chaos that could have detrimental or even deadly costs. How do you know which way to go? What do you do? Well, Rahab, she gives us an example. See, Rahab had to know. Let me see. So if I deliver these men to the king, they'd likely be killed. And if Joshua's people knew that I delivered them to the king, they were going to kill me, right? But then if the king realizes that I knew where they were and I didn't deliver them to him, I'm probably going to be killed. It's a no-win. She can't win either way she goes. And what we find, no-win situations are when a saving lie becomes the best option. That's how saving lies are. See, they are the decisions you make when the odds are against you either way. The way to decide which way to go with a saving lie or a killing truth is one of two things. Does my decision exalt good, and or does my decision exalt God? And when I say does it exalt good and or does it exalt God, I'm referring to does it uplift the right thing to do? Earlier I suggested if a saving lie was the moral truth. But the amazing thing is that when it exalts good and then it also exalts God, then it becomes a sanctified lie, because not only does it save the moral good, because it now becomes holy. See, when Rahab doesn't give the men up, she exalts good because she recognized that God must be in the midst of this situation based on everything that's going on. The king clearly wouldn't be behaving this way if evil or power wasn't in jeopardy. And then God is exalted in her decision because her decision to not give the men up eventually leads to God being able to do what God has already promised he would do. And that's deliver the city of Jericho to Joshua. See, God's plan is exalted when Rahab conceals the spies. In the process of Rahab helping the men get away, she says, maybe I can seek some favor here. She asked the men, once this land is delivered to you, no doubt it will be, because I know that God is with you. What about me and my family? Will I be safe? Because we know Rahab is in a no-win situation. And the men agreed. And while reading this, you may wonder, well, was that her motive? Is that what Rahab was thinking? Well, you know, if I side with these guys, maybe they'll save me. It's very opportunistic, maybe? I don't know. Was that her motives? Perhaps there was some selfish motive in her request. But the real proof is that had she not made that request for her to be saved or for her family to be saved, where would we be today? Because when I said earlier that Rahab's story is so much bigger than her being a prostitute, Rahab is a part of a way bigger narrative that holds all of us in here together, that holds our community of believers together. It's bigger, it's way bigger than her hiding spies. Because if you don't know about Rahab, other than her being a prostitute in Jericho, then let me invite you to read Matthew chapter 1, verse 5. And it reads, Salmon the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. Boaz was the father of Obed, whose mother was Ruth. Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of King David. See, Rahab is an ancestor of Jesus Christ, whom we call the son of David, who we see as Rahab's great-great-grandson, King David. So see, Rahab hiding these spies, securing the safety of her and her family, it was more than that. It really secured salvation for humanity. So let me say that one more time. Rahab hiding the spies, securing the safety of her and her family, secured salvation for humanity. That's a sanctified lie. Good has been exalted. God has been exalted because God's divine nature eventually is revealed to us through Jesus Christ. See, sanctified lies, they don't just happen and work in the moment that you're in. They don't just fix this one problem. They change history for the better. They chart destiny. They affirm prophecies. And we don't have to just look to Rahab in our Bible as an example of the importance of sanctified lies. We can go back a little bit more and think about the story of the midwives and the Exodus story. Do you remember? Do you remember when Pharaoh ordered those two midwives, and their names were Puah and Shiphrah? Do you remember when he ordered them to go and kill the Hebrew male babies in Egypt? The midwives refused to kill the babies because they feared God. And their saving lie to the Pharaoh was that the children had already been born. By the time we got there, we couldn't do anything because the way that they deliver so quickly, they deliver so wild, we just could not catch it. That's what they told Pharaoh. And this saving lie became a sanctified lie because one of those Hebrew babies that were saved was none other than Moses, who led the people out of Egypt. God, good is exalted because the babies were born and not killed. God is exalted because the Israelites were liberated. It changed history. It charted destiny. Prophecies are fulfilled. And even I myself, firsthand this year, I saw an example of what a saving life looks like in real life. Earlier this year on spring break, my family and I, we traveled to Memphis, Tennessee during spring break. And though I did not see my saving life in Graceland, I did see Graceland. I thought it was pretty awesome. But the other site we visited was Slave Haven. And Slave Haven is a literal stop. It is a stop that was on the Underground Railroad. It still exists today. A very modest home. It was the home of Jacob Burkle. And Jacob Burkle was a stockyard owner, but he was heavily active in the Underground Railroad. His home, his cellar was a safe haven for runaway slaves. It was positioned right on the other side of the Mississippi River. As a German immigrant, he found himself in a situation every day where he had to determine, do I tell the killing truth or a saving lie? The debate of having to be in public and support an institution that he knows full well is wrong and he doesn't support. But if he says that in public, he'll be ostracized in society and potentially lose all that he owned. But then in turn, if he did that with his family and friends who supported abolition, he could lose those relationships. Faith Burkle's choice to tell saving lies every day helped save and liberate hundreds of runaway slaves. It exalted good because it allowed a place for those beloved children of God to have a new life. It exalted God because through Paul we learned that the captives must be set free. See, Burkle's sanctified lie, it changed history. It charted destiny. It affirms prophecy because those had claimed that freedom would once be theirs one day. When you find yourself in that place, when you find yourself in that space, that no-win situation, I pray that you choose a saving lie and not a killing truth. We are called to exalt good all the time. We are called to exalt God all the time. May the spirit of Rahab, Puah, and Shiphrah, and Jacob Burkle's, may it be with you. May their sanctified lies guide you into spaces that you can therefore go and change history, chart destiny, and affirm prophecy. This is the word of God.